Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1. Wearing the hat. The hat says we are here to talk about stuff. We are not doing repair videos, but if you're looking for repair videos, I'm going to post the link in the description to my Eric the Car Guy channel. You can go there and watch all the repair videos you like. However, if you wish to stick around and join in the conversation, I welcome you to do so. Doing a little brake work on the Vigor. I know we weren't going to talk about mechanical stuff, but yeah, this is kind of weird. Look at that really weird, uneven pad wear from this guy. Well, things sat for a long period of time. The pads got rusted up where they were, and I was going through and doing some service work. Well, I was also thinking back to a suggestion that was made on the forum last week by barneyb. And what Barney had asked about was just the disposable nature that vehicles seem to be moving toward. For instance, that's kind of why I brought up the brake service on my Vigor, because I was just going around all four corners, taking the pads off and cleaning up the rust and lubricating the slide pins, you know, just the normal brake service stuff. I've got videos about that. In fact, I'll put it in the description for you so you can check that out. One of the things he was talking about was the serviceability of vehicles going away. Case in point, a lot of transmissions that are coming out in vehicles these days don't have dipsticks, don't have any way of changing the fluid. They're sealed for life. What's the point of that? It's kind of what Barney was asking. I can say that, at least from what I've seen, and I say this because, and I keep going back to when I worked at the dealer, but you get a chance to see the evolution of models. You get a chance to see the evolution of a brand. They start out doing one thing, and they, over time, change maybe little things here and there, maybe do something a little bit different, maybe do some upgrade, and then every so often they come out with like a sea change, and there's like a complete redesign of a model. Like many years, it's just like, okay, they've taken the model from last year, maybe changed the headlights and the tail lights a little bit, and maybe futzed with the trim, put a different set of wheels on it and called it the next model year. And then you come along and you get these, like I say, major changes. You get a whole new vehicle perhaps, like a completely new model that comes out. Well, having seen many of those next generation ofs in the course of my life, it's amazing to see how things have become modularized and less serviceable. And I've been thinking about that ever since reading Barney's post and why manufacturers would go in this direction. And I could say for the most part, just about everything a manufacturer does is to maintain interest in the brand, but above that, cost. It almost, engineering, all of it. I mean, we talked about, you know, those effing engineers, that type of thing. And I believe it always goes back to cost, because that's what auto manufacturer is there to do. They're there to make a profit. Sure, they're making a vehicle. That's the business that they're in. I get it. But what they're doing is they're trying to maximize profits so they can continue to do what they do. I'm not saying profits are a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. I'm a small business person. Come on, profits are a good thing. But as in one of the other videos that I had, recalls, we talked about how that sometimes the pursuit of those profits can be at the detriment of the very people that give them that money. And that's a bad thing. But as far as vehicle design is concerned, that is a place where they can save money, quote unquote, legally, let's call it. So what they do is they create things cheaper, faster, lighter, better. And these days, anything that's lighter gets better fuel economy. The less parts they need to manufacture, the less cost. So this is where it comes in. This is part of where my argument or my point comes from. It's that if you remove things like a dipstick, even something as simple as a dipstick from a transmission, you save a couple of pennies over 1 million units, and that adds up. And that's somebody's yearly salary, perhaps. But beyond that, I think a lot of the reason that a lot of manufacturers are doing this, and once again, going back to my experiences working at a dealership, is that when you work on a particular car line, you get to know the ins and outs of, you know, its little idiosyncrasies. A perfect example is this Acura Vigor behind me. They didn't make them for that many years, but I worked on more than most. Unless you were an Acura technician, you probably haven't worked on as many Acura Vigors as I have. And as a result, I got to know the little quirks, the little things that you can do to make the car happy. You know, how to do a valve adjustment correctly. You know, I had a lot of practice with it. How to do the timing belts on these things efficiently. There's certain oil leaks that it has. And I got really good at that. However, if you owned one of these vehicles and you didn't bring your vehicle to me or say a dealership or somebody that had my level of experience with these vehicles, you'd bring it to somebody else in a shop somewhere else. And they would do their best to repair the vehicle, maybe repair that oil leak or adjust those valves or do some of those things that I mentioned. And they would do it to the best of their ability, but maybe their ability and their experience wasn't as good as mine, and as a result, the repair was not as good. A good example is the crappy front struts that are on this car. Not that anybody was trying to do a bad thing, and people were trying to save money, and that's what happened. But as a result, the car is lessened, in my opinion, a little. As a result, because cost was a consideration. But my point with that is, I think manufacturers know this. I think the vehicle manufacturers want the person that purchases that vehicle to have the best experience that they can have, because we talked about this in the brand loyalty video. You have a good experience with a certain make and model or just a certain vehicle make, you're very likely to go back to that make again. For me, it was a Subaru. My first Subaru I had last year, I absolutely love the car, and I'm a Subaru guy now. And I would definitely buy another one. Why? Because I had a good experience with it. Well, I think that, the people as in general that don't necessarily have mechanical abilities, just look at the bottom line. They just look at basically what they're paying on that work order, and I can't blame them for that. But if it comes down to a certain vehicle costing them over and over again, let's use that transmission example again. Say you've got a BMW and it's got a transmission problem, and you take it to a shop on the corner that doesn't necessarily specialize in BMWs, but they're a repair shop. They're capable. They're willing to take the car on and see if they can do something with it. Well, they get in there and they may try to perform a repair, maybe replace a solenoid, or maybe go in the transmission and replace something in hopes of fixing whatever problem that transmission is having. Well, they do that, and maybe it works for a while, maybe it only works, maybe it never works. And then you realize, okay, on top of paying them for the attempted repair, I've got to pay for the repair of the replacement of the transmission. And automatic transmissions are a really good example, because you can get into deep water with automatic transmissions real quick if you don't know what you're doing. And that's why a lot of independent shops, and I've worked in those too. I've worked in chain shops also. It's much easier to put the onus on a remanufacturer than it is to try to do something yourself, unless you're well versed in that particular vehicle. So I think manufacturers, in a way of keeping the customer experience good, in the way of keeping costs down, they make things modularized. And when I say that, what I mean is they make an automatic transmission that's not serviceable. That if there is some type of failure, you just replace the transmission. That's the fix. If there's a problem with that transmission, that's the fix. And if you think about it, automatic transmissions are, in essence, in some ways designed to fail. Hear me out. The clutches inside and bands inside of an automatic transmission slip. They're designed to slip. If they didn't slip, you'd have very harsh engagement of the gears. Now, some of us enjoy that, but the general public does not want that. In fact, I think that's the main reason why Honda transmissions started to fail in the late 90s. Before that, like in the early 90s with these vehicles here, they were harsh shifters. And a lot of people complained that when they drove their Honda, it would shift really hard, it would bang into gear. But I gotta tell you what, this transmission here in this car, granted it only has about 130-some thousand miles on it, bangs into gear, but it shifts every time. There's absolutely no problems with this transmission whatsoever after all this time since '93. So, as a result, they designed transmissions that would shift softer, would shift smoother. And just like a manual transmission that you drive with a clutch, you might slip the clutch a little more and you won't get as harsh of an engagement into the next gear. However, you will increase the wear on that clutch. Same thing with the automatic transmission. The more you slip the gears, the more you slip the clutches, the more you slip the bands, the more likely it is to wear out eventually. So manufacturers, knowing this, can virtually engineer that transmission to last for X amount of time. And when I say they can do that, I mean exactly that. They have the ability to test, they have the ability to run these things through the paces of everything possible, because I mean, they are literally putting things out into the world. And when that happens, anything can happen. It's a difficult engineering task. However, the tools that are available to the modern engineer, I believe, are on par with the ability to sit there and literally plan out how long a component will last. They do extensive testing to find out how long it will last. And I think what they've done, instead of making or just those components serviceable is they've said, okay, we know this component will eventually fail. We want it to fail long after the warranty's up. So they engineer them that way. And they engineer them to be a one-shot deal. And I'm purely speculating here, but hear me out. I think that's what they're doing. I think that they're taking it out of the hands of the inexperienced. I think they're bringing the cost down by doing this, by not putting a serviceable filter in there, or by not doing a fluid change that can actually advertise that their maintenance costs are lower, because you never have to change the transmission fluid. So you never have to have the labor or parts cost of a transmission fluid change in that vehicle. Therefore, if you're sitting there purely by the numbers, opening up a trade magazine or whatever, and you're looking to purchase a vehicle, and you look at the service cost of this vehicle and compare it to this vehicle, and you see the service cost of this vehicle over time is less than the service cost of this vehicle, you may very well go with the vehicle with the lower service cost. And as a result, you may find yourself with a transmission that is not serviceable. I think this trend will continue. I think this trend will really continue. I think, and in fact, you look at GM's design of the Volt and how basically the chassis, the battery pack, and everything is all self-contained underneath. And they can virtually put any body on top of that. I think you'll see a lot more of that in manufacturing because it's cheaper to manufacture. You can manufacture one basic chassis with power, brakes, suspension, everything all attached. And all you'll have to do is tweak it. Like if it's a truck, put a slightly stiffer suspension in it or something like that to handle the loads that a truck would have, passenger vehicle, minivan, whatever you want, you can put on that same platform. And I think GM's moved towards this for quite some time in this modular design. And I think you'll see more of it. I think you'll see just a basic chassis that you can drop any body you want onto. It might be good for us, aftermarket modders, let's call us, because we can go in and change those things. If we don't like the vehicle we have, we might have the ability to just pop the body off and turn it into something completely different. So I think you'll see a lot less serviceable things that are out there. I think you'll see a lot more component replacement as opposed to servicing like what I'm doing here. Brake replacement may be just the replacement of a unit. I think we'll see more hybrids. And as a result, more regenerative brakes. And rather than swapping out pads at a certain time, you might just swap out a whole assembly because it will no longer be hydraulic. It will be electronic. And stepper motors or whatever, your ABS, your traction control, everything all self-contained within a unit that can be bolted and unbolted from the vehicle, and boom, away you go. And I think it will also streamline the service industry. I think a lot of the service industry will go to not even plugging in anymore. I think the days of plugging something in and under the dash are going to be going away. I think there'll be more Bluetooth connectivity. I think you'll see more vehicles with an IP address to where really all you got to do is dial it up, the password. We'll see what kind of things that those kind of issues those cause down the road, because there's the ability for, say, law enforcement to disable your vehicle while you're driving down the road, maybe even hackers. I think once they get past the hacker aspect of things, I think you'll start seeing that a lot more. And you'll have vehicles with an IP address that will email you the issue when it has a check engine light, and also email the dealer at the same time. It'll tell on you. It'll say, it won't just be leaving it up to you. In order to maintain your warranty, you'll have to have it connected to the dealership, and it will email the dealership and say, hey, he just had a code for an emissions problem. Call them up or reach out to them and get them in for service so that they can stay within their warranty. Just pure speculation on my part, but I think that's more of what you're going to see, and I think that's the reason why they're doing it. I think they're doing it to make things more serviceable by more people, to take basically the diagnostics out of it, and the ease of manufacturing, just paring it down to the cheapest way to make things, the cheapest way to manufacture it, so they can manufacture several different types of vehicles using similar chassis and similar components. And that way there's less for them to make. There's less for them to do. And all they got to do is put it together under a certain vehicle design and kick it out the door. I think you'll see more of it. That's my take on it. That's my 2C, as we say in the comments. Anyway, hey, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. There'll be a link down in the description to my forum where we can discuss it further if you wish, or you feel free to comment down below. If you have automotive questions, I might have some answers for you. Over at ericthecarguy.com is where I ask that you go. In fact, that's where I go to answer your automotive questions if you're looking to get answers from me, over there on the forum. But in addition to that, there's a video to tell you about all the amazing features at Eric the Car Guy that can help you with those automotive issues without me even being around. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter. ETCG1 videos come out on Monday, so look for me then. And I close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, and stay dirty.